Would you rather be half dragon or half lion?
I mean, I think we know my answer.
Yeah, Peps is pretty easy. I don't know what. I would do the half lion though. Like I don't know. This is gonna be a weird throwback to like when we were kids. Did everybody ever play like have an animal that you pretended to be when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Like pretended to be a dog, pretended to be a cat, like just like weird like kid animation, like not like imagination things.
Yeah.
I always pretended I was a cat when I was a kid. So like it makes sense that I would like to be a half lion.
Yeah. That was my suspicion, especially since you basically have a small lion in your home with Momo.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I can see both being very convenient and opportunistic at times, but I think I would pick half dragon because I would love to have those wings and, just peace out in a flurry of dust.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're gonna get. Today we're continuing our discussion on monstrosities in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm Pepperina, and with me today are Casey and Megan, and this episode is called Monstrosities, Traditional Creatures with Additional Features.
In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of Dungeon Masters will dive headfirst into 3 D&D monstrosities that have been adapted from real myths from more classic ages of humanity.
So obviously, before we jump into it, I kind of want to ask, and keep this in mind, I feel like the 3 of us being on this episode, you cannot pick giants or dragons, and I say that unfortunately to my own self.
Yeah, I feel like that was really, pointed at.
Yeah, but what is your favorite monster or creature from classic mythologies? So some ideas that I could throw out there for you in case you can't get your mind off dragons and giants. Things like fairies, harpies, wendigos, sphinxes, crossroad demons as a whole. Like what's our favorite? Do we want to roll for this guy?
Yeah, sure.
Let's get that first roll out of the way.
Yeah.
10.
1.
7.
Amazing.
Starting off strong.
All right, so here we go. So if I had to pick like a different kind of like monster or mythological creature that I enjoy the most that isn't a giant, it would be things of like the eldritch horror style. So I would move more towards your crossroad demons. Wendigos, they use them in video games a lot, so like there's a lot of historical stuff there that you can kind of navigate into. But yeah, I would just like, what's the other word for it? There's demons, and then there's I don't know, there's another word for it in D&D. There's demons, and then there's fiends. There, thanks, Casey. We're on fire today. Casey and coffee, fantastic. But yeah, so fiends and demons would be my realm of expertise, and where I would like to, most of my campaigns include those. So I feel like I would have to choose them.
Yeah, I generally love like the fairy style, but I think with this, I have to say the Medusa is my favorite. And the more I've learned about different variants that exist as well, it's just like, Jesus, this creature is phenomenal. And it's that literal frightful presence in that like you really truly want to look, but you cannot look. And that is pretty powerful. Also, traumatizing, and it's, we'll get into that, I think, in another episode, but it's pretty awesome. So Medusa's on my side.
I like I've said before, my games either like lean toward eldritch horror or whimsy. So I think I would pick like fairies. Like I really enjoy the whimsy of like the fae realm and that sort of trickery and just like weirdness and how literal they can take things and that kind of thing, because you can't use sarcasm or like anything like that. You have to be, what you say is what you are saying to them,
and what you say is what you get. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Like you have to very much tread carefully with anything fae or fairy.
Yeah. No, but that's kind of the reason why I like the demons and like the fiends is that you don't
Mhm.
have to be. There's wiggle room for the rules because they're gonna do shit just because they want to do shit, and they're gonna
Mhm.
find a way to make it work, right? So as a DM, even with the Fae, right, they're unpredictable. Like there's a sense of like unknown and whimsy for your players, and for you as a DM, you kind of again have that wiggle room and that freedom to utilize them how you want to use them, and I think that's why I lean more towards the fantastical as opposed to your classic like nonsense.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
with all of them, they're like, there is opportunity to make deals or sacrifices or offerings, and they all have different perceptions on how that might go. It might go
Mhm.
very well, it might not. And that's what also brings kind of the excitement to it as well, in which one
Yeah.
you best.
Yeah.
Bless.
Okay, let's cut to an info break so we can get to the episode.
We've previously covered quite a bit in our discussion on monsters in 5th edition. For all of those episodes and more, you can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and dozens of other podcast apps. If you would like to support us, you can donate through the website, check out our store, or join our Patreon and get access to other episodes and series. If you would like to pay for some ad space on It's a Mimic, or just send a shout out to a friend, please reach out to us through our email and website that are listed in the show notes below.
Most weeks, we release 2 episodes, one on the public channels and one on the It's a Mimic Patreon. 2 weeks ago, we released 3. Last week, we released 4. And this week, we're aiming for 5. Monday kicked off with the next Touring the Multiverse episode, which focused on the life gods of Theros. There's, of course, this episode, but there's also a sequel for Silver Adult Tier patrons and above, where 3 of the women on the podcast sit down to talk about another favorite monstrosity, Medusas. And on Thursday, Tyler and I are back on the Patreon with the next episode of the Campaign Builder, which focuses on dilemmas. But Adam, you're saying, that's only 4. Where's the 5th? Well, I just landed from my bachelor party in Las Vegas, where Dave and Sean, I assume, wrecked me. I'm recording this in the past, so I assume the future is nuts. The plan was to sit down and do a special Legend Lore episode of Vecna, Eve of Ruin. And while it's certainly on the docket, I cannot guarantee that I was in any condition to record it. So, look at your feeds right now, and if you see it, it's there. If you don't see it, it's probably going to have to wait a couple of weeks because I'm back on a plane on Friday, and I won't be back until the second half of June. So, aiming for 5, but at least 4 for sure. Anyway, let's get back to the episode.
So we each have a monster. Let's roll to see who goes first.
Yes.
I'm picking a different dice.
11. I'm sticking right in the center here this day.
17.
Nice.
And ooh, 10 going last. That is
Yeah.
Oh, 10 just went first.
moving up.
All right, so that means I'm going first. I have today the Basilisk. All right, if you are ever out wandering in nature and come across extremely lifelike statues of various creatures with what looks like bites carved out of them, maybe get out of there. Basilisks, I'm going to say their name wrong a bunch because it is a tongue twister. There's a lot of letters in there. Basilisks can live in any climate from dry to tropical, so you can really plop them anywhere in your world except for maybe Arctic areas. They make their lairs in caves or other well-sheltered areas and are most often found underground. One of my favorite details in their lore is that you can domesticate them if you raise them from a hatchling. They will learn to not meet the eyes of their master or their master's allies. Because of this, their eggs are a very highly prized item. As hunters, they are actually rather slow and clumsy, but they don't really need to do a lot of chasing of their prey. A glance from them is enough to start a stony transformation of their next meal. Their strong jaws can bite right through this hard stone, and once swallowed, the matter turns back into organic material in their gullet. It is said that alchemists can harvest some of this gullet fluid to create an oil that can return a petrified creature to flesh. Now, the trick here is if you've been partially eaten, that part will not grow back and you will return with missing parts. If the part missing is like super important to survive, like, your head, then you will return to flesh dead. Now, if you are unlucky enough to lay eyes on a basilisk, you would see a lizard-like creature with blue skin and maroon spikes from head to tail. It has glowing blue eyes and 8 legs. Nice.
Anyways. All right, let's do this episode so I can get mimosas now.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. New goal for the day. Get Megan to mimosas. All right. So looking at their stats, they are a medium monstrosity and a CR of 3, an AC of 15, an average HP of 52. They have a speed of 20, so like I said above, they are slow. The only stats with pluses to their modifier is strength and constitution. Everything else has negative modifiers. They have no skills, immunities, or languages. They do, however, have dark vision of 60 feet. Their stat block is very small. There's not a lot in there. They do get one cool feature, though, called Petrifying Gaze. If a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the basilisk, they can both see each other, then the creature must make a constitution save. On a fail, the creature magically starts to turn to stone and is restrained. It must repeat the save at the end of its next turn. On a success, the effect ends, but on a fail, the creature is petrified until freed by a greater restoration spell or other magic. A creature that isn't surprised can avert their eyes at the start of its turn. If it does so, then it can't see the basilisk until the start of its next turn, where it can choose to avert its eyes again. If it looks at the basilisk in the meantime, it must immediately make the save. If the basilisk sees itself in a reflection within 30 feet in a bright light, it mistakes itself for a rival and targets itself with its gaze. And finally, they get 1 bite attack that has a +5 to hit and does 2d6 plus 3 piercing and 2d6 poison damage. So that is the basilisk and its whole. Yeah, I have.
You have some
I have
feelings?
a little bit of I have some feelings. I have some feelings on the basilisk, based on the fact that it has 8 fucking legs.
Yeah.
It only has a 20-foot walking speed. It can't climb, and it doesn't get a claw attack. Why does it have 8 legs? What is the point of this?
It's called stability, pets. I know none of us know what that means, but stability.
Like, it pissed me off so much. The more I read about it, I was like, these legs are just evolutionarily unnecessary. Why? Like, why?
Like, it
And,
doesn't
like-
even have a burrow, because, like, it's primarily if it lives underground. Like, why doesn't have, like, a burrow speed or something?
Nothing, yeah.
down?
It has 1 speed of walking for
And
100 feet.
I don't know. The art is great in the book, but also I cannot visualize this as only medium-sized.
I
imagine
thought that
it
too.
much bigger.
Yes, it feels like it should be bigger, especially looking at the art than medium.
I don't know.
but-
I do picture them as like not. It does say medium, but the way I picture them is like, yes, larger than your average thing, but in my mind, why don't they have barrel speed? I feel like they should be just like small tunneling like gophers is how I picture them now. Like,
Yeah.
That is
So,
weird.
anyways.
It also makes me wonder, like, okay, as like 2-legged creatures, you get your base is like 30, right? A
Yeah.
horse that has 4 legs can go faster. I don't know what their actual speed is. 8 legs, you get 20 feet. At what point?
Here's the thing. I'm
is
gonna put it.
more legs, less speed, and less legs, more speed.
My challenge here is going to be length of leg then,
Yeah.
because yes, a 2-legged person and or humanoid or like anyways, walking speed 30. Horse
Uh-huh.
has 4 legs, but they're longer than a humanoid's legs.
Yeah.
So I think it's the length and the stride that gives you. If I look at this little thing's legs, they're very close together. I am now imagining it's just tripping over itself.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like it's the tiny little stubs that are just like trying to maneuver around each other. So that's why it's 20. It's like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's very low to the ground. It's stable. You can't push it over or knock it prone. Like I feel like that's a thing that it should have, is that you can't
Yeah.
knock
Yeah.
this thing prone.
Yeah. Like not even it has advantage. It cannot be knocked prone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how are you gonna push
See,
this
that-
over? It has
Even
8
that
legs.
would give me something, like why it has so many legs. Like there's no reason. There's no reason for it. It's too many legs. For
I
no
really want
reason.
I want somebody on the internet to come at us in the comments with a legitimate reason as to why this thing has 8 legs.
You know what, Reddit? If you can give me a valid reason, then I will be happy. But it's got to be a really good one.
Amazing.
I wrote these notes like a month ago. I've been on this rant for a month.
I remember you
Like,
saying I have some feelings about the basilisk. I'm
Yes.
like, what feelings do you possibly have? Like
Dylan has had to listen to this rant several times.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
All
Finally,
right.
it's let out.
Ah,
You
I
feel
so
lighter.
much better. I feel so much better. I can let go of that. All right. So now I've got questions.
Throw down.
As we do. All right. So let's roll for questions.
Oh my God.
15.
Oh, 20.
Nice.
Mhm.
3.
3.
Which
All
is fine.
right.
I always like going later. So
Yeah. I always love asking myself questions. As we all do. All right, so role playing, like what sort of role playing would we do with these? Like I said, they don't have very much intelligence. I think that was their lowest. They had like maybe a 2. So like they're really just going to be beasts hunting. Like that is their only purpose. They don't understand any languages. You can't talk to them. So there's nothing to play with there. It's just it would be more the way that they move. It would be the way that they hunt. They're not in a hurry because they don't have to be. So like they would just sort of pop up. Like they're not chasing. It's sort of like Jason chasing you through the woods. Like you're running, he's not. It would be that sort of like big burly creature. Just they know they're gonna get you. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
they will always be the same distance behind you, no matter how fast you run.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like a quest or like a plot hook that I would use for one of these and how I would use it in my campaign. And like the only thing I could really think about was, one, there's a material on its back. Like I'm looking at these giant spikes that it has, and I'm feeling like that material can be used to make like really good weapons or really good armor or something like that. So they're well sought out and hunted for that. So you might come across a town that hunts these specifically to get like those materials, or like its teeth, or they are using their eyes for their magic, or like wizards use their eyes for magic, that kind of stuff, right? The other one that I thought of was like, these are the henchmen of a bigger bad, right? I'm thinking like Flotsam Jetsam type stuff, because again, when I look at them in the book and the art, because of how ridiculous they look with their nonsensical 8 legs, I just feel like there's some room for hilarity and adorableness with them, right? Like they could be somebody's pet, right? Didn't we ride basilisks at one point? I don't remember. It was some kind of a monstrosity that we rode at one point in the campaign. That might not have been Adam's campaign that was, but like there's just a little bit of like hilarity that you can add if you want to. You don't have to use them as their intended big scary thing. They just look like little dogs to me, Yeah. What about you, Casey?
So in the campaign I'm running with my family right now, they are not very high level, but they are as you do, they are on a big quest to find a way to save some of their friends who are essentially petrified. And so they are seeking higher power magic users that can potentially help them with a greater restoration spell or something like that. They are they have to figure this out. So they are on the road talking to people, trying to figure out how they can find the means and ways to save their friends in that way. And so this would be a perfect thing where when they find said magic user that maybe could make the oil or has that as like their knowledge, they can be then tasked to go okay, you need to find me a basilisk egg, or you need to find me whatever to make the oil. And so that will be potentially a disastrous side quest, depending on how it goes.
Yeah.
To do that, and then they will, if successful, they will be granted the dose or the doses that could reverse the petrified conditions.
Yeah. The materials and the materia used from them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it gets around not being at the level to use greater restoration, and that might not happen for a very long time, but being able to kind of still utilize those types of spells or those types of things. This is perfect for that. So I am probably going to integrate that in as a potential option, because if they take too damn long to figure out other ways and other knowledge, I'm going to be like, all right, I'm dropping a magic user here and you're going to talk to them. And they're going to make you go find a basilisk.
Just a happy traveling magic person.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I would use it that I am probably going to use it that way, which is perfect, and kind of uses them for their real purpose as written in the book, but brings some interesting challenge to a lower level party.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I do like there is a lot in the lore of like different options and ways that you can use them. With the being able to train them and looking for that oil from their gullet and that. Like it does give you a lot as a DM to go off of to use.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to exploration, inspirations. I mean, obviously, as you come across earlier, you're going to find statues half-eaten of things, right? Like, I do find it interesting the bit about them thinking it's a rival. So that means you're not going to find a lot of these in the same area. It's going to be a like singular creature. But it would be interesting to come across a basilisk statue, whether it turned itself into stone or another one turned itself into stone.
Marital dispute, yeah.
Yeah, like having to figure that out. Like, is this the one that turned all these other ones into statues, or is there a bigger one somewhere? Like, that I think would be a very interesting dilemma for your party to try and figure out.
Yeah. For me, for exploration pieces, like if you're going to be hunting one, I feel like sorry, that's more of the combat side, never mind. So I think for environmental, like in explorations with these, is even though they don't have a burrow speed, I do feel like they would live within rocks, caves, tunnels, even though they can't build them themselves. They probably found an old cave of someone else or another being that's no longer there, and they just took over that cave. Is something that would be interesting. So like there may not have been basilisks in these places previously, but as like older and like not like less scary things that you've hunted, and you're starting to run out of like, I don't know, like other mountainous beasts start to disappear, and it's just like because this is taking over their place. And so when you're hunting, you now start seeing these again more wildlife that have been turned into stone. And now you have to figure out like which tunnel and which cave it's taken over, right? And so to hunt it down, you start figuring out what its favorite food is, where that high concentration is going to be, and then you kind of like move into those steps, right? That would be like kind of a good exploration piece for your team.
Yeah, love it. And in the art, it looks like, their eyes essentially are glowing like a white bluish color.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to maybe use that, like, say you are actually trying to hunt one down, or potentially you're moving into an area and you've been warned about a creature that can turn things to stone. And so on your long rest overnight, somebody that's on watch can, like, if they have a high enough perception or they roll high enough, far in like the distance, they see what looks like potentially fireflies or something. There's like these like little moments of like a white glow or a blue glow, and it's actually one of these moving along, and it's like a glint from their eyes, but you can only really notice it in the dark. they also have dark vision, so I feel like they would also be kind of scouting you out in the dark, and they would notice when you're coming, like encroaching on their territory. So that could be used as maybe a clue that like you have entered its realm and it knows you're there, and you may understand what you've seen, but you might just be like, well, it looks like, oh, there's like bugs or fireflies or something way over there.
Yeah, it would be interesting to like get the exploration piece that if you're on watch and you see these things glowing and you see its eyes and you don't get petrified or even have to make a roll for it. And so then you go into town and like you're like, I saw these mysterious glowing blue eyes. And they're like, oh, and it didn't petrify you? And they'd be like, well, no, like I don't know what it is. What is it? And they're like, oh, well, that's the pet of this big bad evil guy, which means that big bad evil guy doesn't want you dead. You may want to go figure that out.
Ooh, yeah.
Because in the training piece that it speaks to, it says that the basilisk knows the ones that its master does not want dead or to be killed or hurt or injured.
Yeah.
So you might be on a big bad evil guy's hit list if you come across one of these and it doesn't petrify you.
Yeah.
So,
and it's essentially like a guard for the region as well, where like if you are supposed to be coming, for if you've been summoned, it lets you pass, but if you have not been summoned and you're trying to just break in and cause problems and cause shit, it attempts to petrify you. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like it. All right, so that brings us to combat. So they only have the one bite attack. So I mean, combat with it, it's just mostly going to be trying to turn your party to stone.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's gonna
like,
stone and then om nom.
Yeah, it's not gonna bite you until you're stone, really. So it's just gonna be looking at you, you know, the whole the whole time. You do, the good news is, as a player, that you do have an opportunity to reverse that. If you succeed on your second save, because you have to fail 2, and the DC is only like a 12, so it's not that hard to pass that save at least once of your 2 times. So I think like for it, there's not a lot there. I think for players, you have a lot of opportunity to get creative with it, with the like not looking at it and then like having to hide behind things. And I think that could be a very fun combat experience, having to like figure out, it's more of a puzzle. It's figuring out the puzzle of this combat versus just going in straight at it, running at it.
Yeah. And as a DM, you would have to, this is where you would make your players talk about exactly where they're going and how they're looking and cover and all of that, and especially if that hasn't been a key thing that you focused on in this sort of encounter and combat. You would be like, okay, you need to explain that further, because depending on what you say you do,
it's whether or not you have to make this. And I think that like if you can figure out that reflection thing, that if it looks at itself, like trying to get it to look at a reflection also would be a very interesting piece of this combat puzzle.
Yeah, and if someone can figure that part out, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. I don't know, this isn't really fitted to combat because like obviously we've talked combat, it's pretty simple with these ones. But just a like exploration piece or idea, again, if they're the henchmen of a big bad evil guy, is that the big bad evil guy likes to save some of the strongest warriors that tried to like go after it. So it actually has like a hall of statuettes of all of these like heroines and heroes that attempted to like attack it, and it has a basilisk that just turns them into stone. And then they have like this big, I'm imagining it's like the entrance hall is just lined with all of these giant statues of heroes that tried to get them.
With like a little nibble out of them.
Just a toe, you know?
Just a little nibble.
Kevin, no. That one's for the collection.
Stop.
Damn it, Gregory.
You can have that gnome over there.
Yeah.
And set up for a perfect even one shot where you need to firstly destroy the basilisk so you can get the oil, and so that you can then, one of those heroes you have to actually like revive and save.
But you can only choose one.
Yeah, but you
out of like 100.
Yeah. And you know that they have been like put into this hallway of heroes. Yeah.
I
so
love it.
cool.
Basilisks.
Yeah. I
They're
was
great.
thinking
They're great
what?
other than the leg situation.
other than the leg. Yeah, and like the petrifying gaze is like obviously very, very close to what a Medusa can do. But like, and you can chop off a Medusa's head, throw it in a bag, and use it elsewhere. But I don't think the same is for this one, and that if you chop off its head, it's probably not going to just remain with its ability to petrify gaze. But I would try it.
You gotta try. You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
don't know. You
Why
don't
not?
know.
You might just have to, like sew the eyelids open and, see what happens.
Perfect.
But yeah, this is definitely one of those creatures where massive missed opportunity if your party does destroy it and then doesn't do any sort of harvesting looting, because there's so much valuable stuff here that could come into play later to sell if you need a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And all of that. So that you have to keep in mind. And if your players are completely missing it, and like say it went very poorly, but they finally did like destroy the basilisk or basilisks, and then they're like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here, and they're leaving. Like as a DM, you'd be like,
Yeah.
that's everything you want to do.
I mean, even like not looking for eggs would be a giant mistake.
Yes, right? Like there's this creature presents that where like you will make this mistake once and only once. So if you ever come across this again,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd
Or
maybe
if they
give it to
they
them.
destroy the eggs and then they go back to town and are like, we did it, and we destroyed the eggs, and people are like, why? Like, why would you do that?
How many were there? Why would you do that? Are there any left? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what those are worth?
Exactly. Yeah. So that would also kind of be fun as a DM to like cause that like goddamn moment.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps us up then on the basilisks. I
Yeah.
don't remember who was next.
I am. I will go next.
right.
I volunteer as tribute, as so the dice will say. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Chimera, not the Chimera. I'm talking about the Manticore.
You can't. I'm like, shit.
He's like, no.
Casey, didn't we do that in one of the other episodes?
I did that to you.
Oh no.
I was like, I'm gonna talk about this. You're like, no, you're not.
I am. Let's fight about it. Oh Lord. All right.
All
Well,
right.
for reals, I'll be talking about the Manticore, which in real world lore is depicted as a lion body with the head of a human and a scorpion tail that is barbed, and sometimes, depending on who you ask, are venomous. Some folks say similar to the kind of similar to like the Egyptian Sphinx, as you again with the human head and animalistic body. And as mentioned, but again, it's scarier looking because they have like the barbs, the giant tail with the barbs, all those things, right? So some say the barbs, as I mentioned, are poisonous and can launch like arrows. But that one, that lore is not entirely solid. Again, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, they're myths and legends after all. They also have 3 rows of teeth used for chomping down on bone. So they basically leave nothing behind, which is now not surprising that their name actually translates to man-eater. It is important to note that these do come from Persian lore, is kind of where they originally originated from. But I couldn't really find much on how they came to be. But the most recognizable place folks will see a manticore in everyday life is that they are usually depicted in a lot of medieval heraldry. You'll see them in people's like, again, like their family crests or on their shields, like things like that. Like they're utilized in a lot of depictions and things like that, which I think is hilarious as humans, because these are built to kill humans. It's their job. They hate humans. They eat humans. They like human flesh. So that brings us to basically being in fantasy and D&D. These are depicted by different franchises many different times, such as in Final Fantasy is a big one, and other like fantasy type video games or whatever used manticores. But in D&D 5th edition, there is one main difference, and that is that they are given bat wings or dragon wings, depending on who you ask. And if I ask Peps, it's dragon wings. But if I ask somebody else, they might just say that they're like
Always dragon wings.
right?
Yeah.
You can find these ones in your classic monster manual where it describes them as evil predators. In fact, they are considered lawful evil. They are predatory hunters that will even hunt in groups to take down the largest creatures and share the kill. So I think that's where that lion kind of comes from. Like they would hunt in packs of lionesses and then they bring the kill back and everybody gets to enjoy the kill itself. You could potentially find one on the battlefield, as they do tend to work for benevolent evil folks who use them in their armies. However, they have to be well taken care of or they fuck off. I imagine them to be very fussy and very like high maintenance if you were to actually try and control one of these. They have to be getting something from you and vice versa, or it's going to be like, this is not worth my time.
Yeah. I feel like that like goes into their feline nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the I own you. You don't own me. I am
Like,
helping you.
If a cat's not being taken care of, they're just gonna fuck off.
Yeah, like fuck you. Peace out.
I can do this better. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly, right? They do tend to stick around highly humanoid populated areas and trade routes. As you guessed it, they love chomping down on humans. In fact, there is a quote in the book that made me laugh out loud, which I just closed. So let me just grab that. I was like, I don't need this anymore. The quote is, "Manticores love the taste of human flesh. That's why on trips through the mountains, I always travel with human guards."
Says the dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up like camping a lot with my family, and my dad would always, his thing was always, he's like, you do not have to be the fastest. You just have to be faster than the slowest person.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that quote reminded me of. So, all right, but other than that, there's really not a whole lot in their stat block that kind of adds anything to their history, but a couple of things to keynote, of course. They have a walk of 30 and a fly speed of 50. So again, this is the conversation. If it has 4 legs, why can't it walk faster than a regular humanoid?
Yeah.
But it can fly 50. Basically, this supports the fact that in battle, if they are outnumbered, they will technically fly up out of range and attack from above. Which, speaking of their attacks, they kind of do reflect all of that. So they do have a multi-attack of 3, which is 1 bite and 2 claws, or it can attack 3 times with its tail. The attacks are kind of minuscule, though. They only have a +5 to hit and a 1d8 + 3 for damage for all 3 of them. Just different types of damage. So there's piercing from the tail and its arrows, and then, blunt damage, like that kind of stuff, right? All of this does really only make the Manticore a CR3. But I think this supports the idea that they will fight and hunt in groups. And if they are about to die in the battle, they will run to fight another day. They are not going to fight until they are gone. They will, I feel like they would even abandon each other if they had to. So like if there was a group of 5 of them and your group came across them and started fighting them and they saw 2 of their friends go down, they're out of there. They don't care. They're like, peace out. Like, I am going to save my own skin to hunt another day for somebody else. So
I would even go as far as, depending on how the fight goes or how you set it up with how many Manticores, you might add in pack tactics.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't have pack tactics.
Yeah, that's true.
That seems to make sense to me, to just be part of their ability.
It does. Like, see, here's the thing, because the way I see it too is that yes, they utilize each other to take down the bigger kill so they can share it. However, I do feel like they are self-centered enough.
Yeah.
That when they do get their share of the meat, they're going to take extra. Their pack tactics and fighting styles isn't to fight together to get it. It's just to make sure that there's other people in the battlefield so that I will survive and Gregory may not.
Yeah.
So there's a rivalry in my mind. Like, yes, they hunt together, but there's a little bit of an undertone rivalry, I think. And I think that's, in my mind, why I would justify that they don't have pack tactics, is so they don't work together.
Yeah, that's
if that
fair.
makes sense. Yeah. So they will kick you in front of the evil thing before they help you get a better attack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the Manticore.
All right. Let's roll and ask more questions.
Yep.
13.
9.
11.
Oh, I'm first again. All right. So role playing. There's definitely a lot more role playing opportunities with these than the Basilisks. And even like that they do speak common, it says they have.
Yeah, they speak common.
They have a language. I can't imagine having this thing talk to me. Like, if this thing lands in front of you and just starts talking, like, that would scare the shit out of me. Like, these things, they're terrifying looking, and I remember painting this mini, and like like I hated painting its face because it was just so like I don't like it. I don't like that this has a human face.
Yeah.
Human face with 3
So-
rows of teeth.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it was terrifying, and it talks to you and it opens its mouth and you see those 3 rows of teeth.
Like I just full on like femur bones, just like weaved
Yeah.
in between. Like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like-
that's it is going to, if you get the opportunity to talk to one of these, it's going to be terrifying, like just standing in front of you.
Mhm.
I do also find it interesting that they hate humans but will also work with them on the battlefield.
Yep.
That was like an interesting tidbit to me. So like I would like to see that relationship of like them working with a army, and then like that army starting to lose and them turning on them.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a
Yeah.
story to tell.
All right, well, I will let you tell that story. That's all I got.
I don't have any major details because I can't necessarily remember how it ended, but wait, in case you might remember this, we had a Manticore in our group at one
Yeah.
point when we were on, and I think it was at the point when we were on the water on our ship that he was with us the most, because we utilized him to be a scout, to like fly up and like find things. But like there would be nights where we'd wake up in the morning and the one of the ship crew would be dead. Like he was just slowly picking off like the weak ones, and like just like that's what it felt like. It might have been something else. Adam can correct me. I don't care. But like he definitely wanted to eat us.
Yeah.
And he did not understand why we kept keeping things alive. So that was the role play that we got to do a lot, was we'd get into battle and we'd fight, and then like one of us would go down, and his instinct was to go and eat that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd be like, no, like we're gonna it's just on death saves, man. Like we're just gonna heal it. Like fuck off. And he's just like, why? Like it's perfectly good me. You know what I mean? Like, and like Adam did play him very regal and very prestigious, very full of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason he was with us was because he thought we were the strongest in the lands.
Yeah.
As soon as he realized we were not, he turned and fucked off.
Yeah.
So as soon as we came into something that defeated us, he was like, I'm gonna go with that guy. And like, and he left. Right. So we did have an interaction with the Manticore. We did have like those awkward moments at the table where it's kind of like, no, please don't eat them. Like down, like no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then yeah, as soon as we were not the strongest thing in its mind, it's like, fuck off, I'm done. Like I don't need you anymore. I'm gonna go follow that guy. Like
And I think that is where like both the lion nature and like if they are dragon wings, like giving them that little bit of dragon personality to them. Also of the like, well, I'm the best. I'll help you, I guess, but like I'm better than you. So remember that.
Remember that I can eat you.
Yeah. And I will.
It
Like,
reminds
I have
me
zero hesitation.
yeah, it reminds me of that TikTok audio where it's just like, I could be a lot worse than I'm not, and I think people need to appreciate that more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's their entire vibe.
Yeah.
Like recognize.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And looking back on that, I don't think I realized how much danger we were in constantly while we had him around.
Yeah, like we would go to sleep in its presence. Like
That was not nearly concerned as much as I should have been.
I think that's why Adam gave us the grace if he was picking off the weak like shipmates that we had that were like random NPCs that we didn't give a shit about, you know what I mean? But
yeah. I like how the book also says, like, the Manticore isn't particularly bright, but it possesses a malevolent nature and the ability to converse. So the very first thing it's going to do is talk to you. Like, it's going to be like, hold up. Like, if if suddenly everyone is drawing weapons and coming flying in, it's like, whoa. What the fuck? Hold on a second. And you're gonna be able to be a bit of a like arrogant jerk and make your players figure it out.
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like they're all about survival. They're only a CR3 if they're by themselves, and 5 level, like, you know, adventurers rock up to it. It's going to be like, I know I will, if I fight these, I will die. So I'm going to try and talk my way out of this.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be one of those, like, do you know who I am? Like, hold on.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%,
Like, it's going to have that personality.
And I feel like it will always try to have the higher ground as well. Like it will be hanging out on like a branch up higher up or on the top of a rock, or like it will have a vantage point and it will try to maybe like floof out its wings to just show size and
It look bigger.
dominance.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second that it's not going its way, it's just gonna fly away. It's gonna be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Exploration. I'm kind of curious, like, what do we think their like layers would be like? Would they have a nest because they have like wings, or would it be more of a like you think of Scar and the Lion King and like where he hangs out and that kind of stuff? Like where do we think that would go? Where they would live? Because it does say they
Yeah.
like to be near populated areas. So like you would come across their lair. It's
Yeah.
not gonna be like super hidden, I think.
Here's what I picture in my head. I'll tell you
Uh-huh.
what. So trade routes are big for them. Like, you
Uh-huh.
know, because in my mind, they wouldn't house somewhere comfortably where they live, because then they can be hunted faster. So my imagining is they were gonna have a nest. It's gonna be like, think of like a mountainous cavern where there's like one of those like trade routes that goes through a mountain cavern. And so then their nest is perched on top of like a little mountain top that you can't get to unless you have like superb climbing skills. And they have a little nest and perch up there, and then they just outlook at the little trade route. So it's going to be the most dangerous trade route to go through because the manticores might be hunting that day. So it's almost like you would have to, if your troop was going to be traveling through these lands, you are warned, do not travel at night. You need to be able to see the skies and keep your eyes up, because it's manticore territory, right? But it is the fastest trade route to go through if you have to get from one place to another, kind of thing. Like the go through the mountain instead of around the mountain kind of vibe, right? But that's what I meant. And then their nest, in my mind, I just picture the Lion King. There's a bunch of fucking manticores lying around lazily in the sun, finding a sunbeam, finding a nice rock that's heated. Like,
yeah, and I don't think like you said, with the 3 rows of teeth and they're like eating bones and stuff, you're not going to find like the basilisk leaves a trail, like you see the stones and stuff. You're not going to find like that kind of trophy left behind. You're not going to see bones or any of that kind of thing. But being along trade routes, I do imagine you would find things like they would
turned over like wagons and shit like that.
Yeah. And I would just imagine they take some things just in like an arrogant way. Like I killed you, I took your thing. Like just, or even, I don't know, you just get the cat sort of. I picture them more as cats like playing with a ball of yarn or something. Like they're gonna get bored and want something to do. They're gonna like get something to
Distract it with
around.
the ball.
Yeah, and like sort of like a sadistic way almost, though.
Yeah.
So I would see like little traces of items, but not traces of prey that they have left behind because they're eating all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I would like to maybe use the territorial ways that it has against like other winged creatures. Like say you are a group traveling by wyvern and then you don't realize it, but you enter a manticore's like area, that is going to cause major problem. Because they are going to be super territorial and they're probably going to see you coming from a ways away and rally the troops, and you're probably going to be surprise attacked by manticores once you crest the ridge of the mountains or whatever. So that could be a fun thing to play in if your party has mounted winged creatures amongst it. That's going to be a problem. I also like that it says like manticores fear dragons and avoid them. So again, if you want to introduce a dragon to your campaign, you could be in the throes of a battle with a manticore, and then suddenly all of the manticores just stop fighting, disengage, and leave. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like it, and maybe they were winning, maybe they weren't, but suddenly they just all disappear. And then, a few moments later, you see a shadow pass overhead, and like a dragon has just been swooping in and moving across. And it may not even be that it was coming to attack you, but just it has moved into the area, and so the manticores just leave, and then you realize, oh shit, that was a dragon.
Yeah.
It's that what is scarier than these scary things? Like
Right?
what is the thing that scares this nightmare?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings us to combat. And how we would see using them in combat. I mean, these are definitely a very combative creature. I feel like a lot of times in episodes we get ones that are like, I mean, I don't see them fighting. Like these, that's their point. Like they're
hunters. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're most likely going to get into a fight with these. I do really like the, thought of them fighting in like a war or an army. I would like to see them in that sort of a setting, I think. So if I were to bring them into like a campaign, I think I'd use them in that way.
Yeah.
And like, do we think they would let somebody write it? Like, could you imagine somebody?
I rode the Manticore once.
Yeah.
It was an argument. Like it was just like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm just like, I need you to. Like we have to do this.
I remember that.
Absolutely not. And like Adam and I fought at the table. I'm like, I'm not doing. I'm like, well, I'm rolling to convince. And he's like, you can try. And I was successful. So again, it is a struggle because it's smart enough to know if I'm carrying this thing on my back, I might not be fast enough. I might not be strong enough. Like it's like you're giving it you're impeding its ability to be its strongest self if you are riding it. But I feel like if they are trained in war and it's a part of their like the maneuver tactics, and if the person that's riding them on their back has proven to be protective and a strong being, they would probably accept it, right? Like I was my paladin warrior of light at the time when I rode a Manticore. So I think one of the only reasons why she got a chance to do so was because she was strong as fuck.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, fine. But he did not much care for it.
Yes. Yeah, they're not gonna worry about if you fall off. Like they're just gonna keep going.
If I fell off,
like,
you would not come after
fucking
me.
Hold on. Yeah.
I'm like, it's your fault.
Your fault. Too bad. But yeah, I would, and with them like fighting in groups and that, like it's not just gonna be one in that army. Like it's gonna be several, and they're gonna have that like front wave of Manticores coming at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the fronts, or they were just like the second row of aerial, like arrow attacks with their barbs and stuff like that. Which is a good time to say, because I don't think I said it before, but they do actually regrow their spikes. So in one day versus in battle, they have 24 spikes in their tail, but then when they take a long rest, they regrow. So, but you technically only have 24 uses of your tail spikes in one day.
Yeah.
Until you.
But if you have 10 of them, that's a lot of tail spikes.
That's a lot.
Coming at your party. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But
and three attacks like per action, so that's a decent amount of rounds. It could just use its tail spikes till it runs out from a ring.
Yeah, because if the average damage, so it's 1d8 plus 3, and it's an average of 7 basically, so you can do around 21 damage to one person per round. So as a CR3, DMs may see this as a lower party thing that they can fight, but like if it could go really, really bad, really, really fast if rolls work for one side and not the other, right?
And with their like staying in the air more and having that 50-foot fly speed, like it's gonna be hard to hit them as your party. Like at level 3, you don't have like your characters that can fly or
or range
that
magic
kind of
spells.
thing. Your abilities to hit things that far up in the air is gonna be a lot harder.
And the range of the tail spike is 100 or 200 at disadvantage. That's also very far. Like you might get hit and realize the sky is full of manticores before you even saw them or perceived them.
Yeah.
And that's only 2 turns for them to get 100 feet away.
Yeah.
With a 50-foot fly. Like,
Yeah.
Damn.
I imagine them being
Yeah.
more aerial if they're going to be in a battlefield, because they would want to be able to see everything that's happening. But until they can get up in the air, I feel like that's the first thing they're going to try and do. If a group of people come at it and it's by itself and doesn't have a group of folks, the first thing it's going to do is try and get up in the air. So if you as a group are trying to find a battle tactic on how to get one of these, it's going to be nets, it's going to be traps, it's going to be finding any way to keep it on the ground, because its AC is only 14. You're going to stab it, so they're easy to kill once they're trapped. This is something you trap. It's not something that you fight as is, right? Yeah.
All right. And I think that then brings us to our last monster.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we are going
You're on.
Finally. Woo! The Chimera. So the Chimera is in the monster manual, where it is described as a large monstrosity created after mortals summoned Demogorgon to the world, and he was unimpressed with the creatures it saw. Being the prince of demons, it decided to combine and transform worldly creatures into multi-headed monsters. Thus, they typically have the hindquarters of a goat, forequarters of a lion, wings of a dragon, and one head of all 3 of those creatures. The monster is also a combination of the worst traits from each creature: the dragon greed for plunder, the lion's territorial nature to hunt and kill, and the goat's stubbornness. I just love that there's a goat in there.
I know. I was just thinking, like, what?
He's the voice of reason.
What was the purpose of the goat? Like,
He's just like, no, we're not doing that.
They will toy with their prey, taking pleasure in fear and suffering. However, they are egotistic and can be convinced to spare your life for the right offering or food treasure, flattery, or other gifts. They will claim territory as large as 10 miles wide and are very territorial and competitive, considering like dragons, griffins, manticores, wyverns as their greatest rivals. What is this? Oh, and purtons. Yeah. I need to learn what those are. I don't know what those are.
I don't know what that is either.
Purtons.
All right.
Moving on. So chimeras are known from Greek mythology as a fire-breathing monster of ancient Lycia, said to be the offspring of the Greek god Typhon, a serpentine giant, and Greek monster Echidna, half-woman, half-snake monster, and has siblings to monsters, and is sibling to monsters like Cerberus and the Lemurian Hydra. So all just morphed like blends of creatures and then monsters that come out of that. So this creature combo gives them a CR of 6, a little over 100 hit point average, a 30-foot walking speed, and a 60-foot flying speed, along with a mix of above and below stats, with highest being strength and con, and the lowest being intelligence at -4. They are skilled in perception, they have dark vision of 60 feet, and understand Draconic, but cannot speak. They have multi-attack for 3 attacks with a bite, horn, and claws that combined can deal an average of 32 hit points of damage. It has a fire breath that can be swapped in for one of the bite or horn attacks, which is a 15-foot cone and a DC 15 dex save, or take all or half of 7d8 fire damage, depending on your save. The Mythic Odysseys of Theros gives us a slightly modified story for the Chimera, which is covered in more detail in the It's a Mimic Theros series. That is an episode that is a series Miaca and I do, so check that out if you want a bit more on that. But the Theron Chimera is said to be created by the god Kyrinos to test Nylea's favorite champion, Renata of Setessa. But when that chimera was destroyed easily, Kyranos made a bigger, better, faster, stronger version, combining many animals, but unfortunately none were able to rival Renata. We also get direction on how to construct your own chimera in the Theros book, which would definitely be fun if you wanted to introduce a chimera that fits into your world a little better with particular monsters than the one in the monster manual. And that's essentially the chimera.
Nice. Terrifying.
Yeah. So many different ways to destroy you.
Yeah. All right, let's roll for questions. 15.
12.
9.
Ooh.
Oh man. Usually I use this dice because it always has me go in the middle. It's like on fire today. All right. So role playing for the Chimera. I find it interesting that it doesn't speak Draconic since it has a dragon head and dragons can talk.
Mhm. Yep.
So I would almost, as a DM, make it so that just the dragon head can talk because
Yeah, the other two don't quite understand what's happening, but like the
Yeah.
dragon's like, no, I get it, and like it's translating internally.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah. But I would like all three of the different personalities to like come out almost. Like they have that sort of telepathic connection between the three heads.
Mhm.
I don't know, it would be fun, like it would be fun to have it arguing with itself almost. Like but you can only hear one side of this three-sided conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought of like how you can role play Ettins that way, where like
Yeah.
the heads argue constantly. I feel like with this, it would be more animalistic response, but it would be like the goat head tries to like whack the lion head with its horn, and like the lion tries to snap at the other one.
Oh man, the dragon just like snorts at the like,
Yeah.
Totally.
totally.
Like smoke comes out of its nostrils, like
Yeah.
yeah, I would like the goat doesn't add a ton to like the scariness or anything of it, but I would definitely lean into that stubbornness that it mentions.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I think that is like that's really the only thing the goat's bringing to the table.
Yeah.
To this whole party is its stubbornness. So in that like role playing, whether you let it speak or not, like it's not going to concede like easily. You're
Mhm.
not going to be able to talk this thing into doing what it doesn't want to do. Even if you do speak Draconic and can communicate with it in some
Yeah.
way. Like it's just not. Like it'll show you that it understands what you're saying and then just no. So I would lean into that part.
Yeah.
Because what else is the goat there for?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could also be the fun aspect of like the mixed decisions in your party as well, because your fighter or barbarian are just going to be like, I am going to be the one who destroys a chimera, yes, and they're going in, and then the goat of course is like, we're charging in, like we're doing this, and then another party member might be like, wait, let's try and talk to it. I know Draconic. Let me try and talk to the dragon part of it. And then they're trying to converse. And then the dragon is going, wait, let's just see what they want. Maybe they can get something for us, or maybe they have something valuable. And so the dragon's trying to pull back. Like it would just be like this round of chaos because part of it's trying to attack, part of it's trying to communicate. The dragon part's probably trying to like lift it off into the air so that the barbarian doesn't get as close as they're coming. And it would just be this like hilarious battle between all of the wits and all of the instincts.
It would be interesting. Like, here's the thing, and this wouldn't be how to roleplay the Chimera itself, but I just came up with this really cute idea of like having almost like a guild that is only 3 people, but one has the personality of a dragon, one has the personality of a lion, one has the personality of a goat, and their heraldry and chest piece would have a chimera on it.
Mhm.
And then no one really knows why until you start listening to the converse. Is because
Yeah.
they're constantly at odds with each other and constantly like it could be even if you have a group like a group of players that are that way, like our group of players is that way, Casey. Like all of us
Yeah.
play our role. and like who gets to fight for what. And I feel like that's a good like little mirror to throw in front of your players. That role playing this out with animals in front of them makes them like, oh, maybe we shouldn't fight and argue about this. Maybe we should plan things out ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a really cute thing to role play out at the table somehow. Yeah.
All right. Exploration. Have you guys come across one of these at all?
Non D&D.
I did very briefly.
Nice.
Yeah, it was either the first or second session of a brand new character that like she grew up essentially in the Underdark. She was a deep gnome and was trying to get out of there, and we like looked up and there was just a chimera like hanging from the ceiling. And we had to like very much, like I said, it's like my first or second session. I was like, I don't want to die by this chimera. And we could hear it sort of like arguing with itself or talking with itself, and like just had to sneak our way out. Like I was like, I'm not engaging. I am not engaging with this. But with that, I mean, I gotta lean into the dragon side of this. So I would very much have, a in-depth layer situation with it and what you're gonna find and that kind of stuff with it. And it would be very interesting coming into a lair, it looking like a dragon lair, but seeing the paw prints of both a lion and a goat.
Yeah.
But like scorch marks on the wall of a dragon, and just like, what the fuck is in this lair? Like just trying to, as a player, trying to figure out like what made all of these things. Is there 3 things in here, or like
how many things am I going to be fighting? Because you see the scratch marks on the walls, the different types of footprints. You're going to see like, and especially if you come across something that it's killed and eaten, you're going to have like, if somebody investigates it, being like, oh, I wonder what killed this large creature, and then the investigate's like, oh, well, it's got teeth marks raked through it, it has claw marks raked through it, it's been stomped to death by what might be a hoof. It just goes over all these other different options that it could have been.
And scorch marks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have 3, like if you had a ranger who really knew animals and nature and that, it would have 3 distinctive like bite marks out of it. And it would like just trying to figure that, like, why would a dragon, a lion, and a goat work together to kill this thing?
And then there's that one person in the party that's like, wait a minute, I've read about these before. Could it potentially be XYZ? And your ranger or hunter is basically just like, those aren't from here. What are you talking about? That's impossible. And it's like, well, it might be possible based on what's happening right now. So
yeah. And that's like, if anyone has some sort of connection to different realms, that they could maybe have advantage of figuring out what's going on. And this is obviously going to come up in a mountain range, because we've got goats who are very stable with their hoofs on the mountain like cliffs, and we have lions who like dens that are going to be like the caves, and then we have dragons who also like caves and layers. So
and it is a red dragon, which is a mountain-based dragon.
So I'm mountainous for sure.
Yeah. And I think it would be fun to bring in the Demogorgon piece. This is actually something that I didn't know before doing like my due diligence and research on this, is that connection that like the Monster Manual 5th edition has, because there is a lot of different like stories and lore around the Chimera. But this one, if you want to bring in something that like generally nowadays in the last even 5 years, I think a lot of people have heard the word Demogorgon a lot more just from movies and series. And so I think that could be a fun thing to bring in, because people know the terror and the horror of Demogorgon. And so it's like, wait a second, Demogorgon made this? Is Demogorgon here? And just like bring that kind of exploration clue to what creature this is and where it came from.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. So that brings us to combat. Would you lean into more of the dragon or the lion like combat style? Would it be more like sneaky predatorial like a lion hunts, or would it be more like upfront about it like a dragon is?
I feel because they're like aerial, like territorial kind of creatures, it knows that it's going to have it. It's smart enough to know it has advantage in certain places. So it's going to know that you're there because of its like lioness, like lion type. It's going to know that you're there before you find it. And then the dragon's going to be like, let's go get it. And the lion's going to be like, no, like, we're just going to hang again. We're going to hang from the ceiling until they come underneath us, and then we're going to drop down and you can light it on fire then. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there is going to be some kind of a strategy around how they trap their prey, because they're hunters, right? So they are going to have an idea of how to manipulate that battleground to their benefit. So but I do like the idea that it's going to be a combination of like, as soon as it does fight, it's going to be aggressive as fuck because of the dragon. And then once they start losing, the goat's going to be like, we need to go. Like, so
or the goat is going to be like, no, we are not losing this fight, turn around.
That's true.
Like the stubbornness.
We let this small thing kill us. Are you kidding me?
Yes, because they're very egotistical, and so they believe that they will be able to beat anything, and like they toy around with their prey too. Like they will attack and like debilitate, and then like take a casual loop and then come back down. It's like, I guess we'll finish you off, and they'll let their targets suffer and be in pain, and they'll like, okay, we'll kill you now. Like they're all about trickery and like causing pain and suffering. So they also won't necessarily go in just for the straight up kill. Like I feel like they would slash and cause extra pain and then move on to another target and try and hurt a different target, then fly up and re-strategize and come down with a different tactic. And it would just be that chaos of just hurting, wounding, debilitating, isolating, maybe trying to split the party, make somebody use a fly ability and take off, and then target them in the sky so they might fall to their death. Like it's just going to be vicious, malicious, just evil. And they are chaotic evil. So I think that plays into it as well.
I would almost like to play around with homebrewing different types of dragons as it, because like in the a base is a red dragon, but like if you made it a black dragon and you had the like sadistic nature of the black dragon combined with the lion part of it, like how that would change even like its combat style and like what it does and how it acts. I think you could have a lot of fun in your campaign just changing those like those features. Or if it was a green one, like it would add a trickery aspect to your combat where it's not exactly what you think it's going to be. It's got like traps or something set up also with it, and it's not as straightforward as you think it's gonna go.
Yeah,
I like that.
All right, it's almost time to wrap this up, but before we do, let's jump into our last info break.
If you've been inspired by the conversation in this episode, please feel free to reach out and share your creativity and ideas with us and the rest of the community. You can reach us on Facebook and Instagram or on our subreddit r/itsamimic. Also, if you're feeling particularly generous, please follow and subscribe and leave us positive reviews, likes, and comments. Engagements like that help us pop up on search engines and keep this show running.
Yeah, all right, kids. Out of these three, any final thoughts? Do you have any feelings on your favorite? Which ones you don't like? So on and so forth.
I feel like I know Peps' least favorite.
I boo the basilisk.
Look, I like the basilisk. It just has too many goddamn legs for no reason.
That's how I feel. What you just said is how I feel about spiders. Whenever somebody's like, "Megan, why are you so afraid of spiders?" Megan has too many legs for no reason. It moves too fast for no fucking reason. And I appreciate its need in the world, but you could have built anything else to do that. Why 8 legs and why spiders?
Why?
Like, you know,
Why?
like we could have gone anywhere else with that direction.
Mhm. I mean, obviously, I like the dragon aspect of the Chimera. Nobody's surprised about that. If there's any dragon, anything, that's my favorite. I do think the Basilisk does lend to a lot of interesting things you could do as a DM with its lore and the being able to like train them and using the gullet to make potions and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just has too many legs.
Yeah, I think that's something I really like the Basilisk for that reason, because we don't get a lot of that in monsters breakdowns and lore. As to like, we do get some for some of the major ones, but Basilisk seems pretty like low on the totem pole for one that we're like, this one has materials we like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that does come from its lore and history outside of D&D, but I like the fact that that's written into the book as part of its thing and part of its kit. And we as DMs don't have to make that shit up. Like, it does exist. Eggs, important. Right? Like, so I like that about the Basilisk. I do love me a Manticore these days. And I think weirdly enough, it is because of the interaction we had with the one in our campaign with Adam. It made me like the idea of using them, and they're not just your classic little like lion monster. Like, there's more to them than just being, again, their stat block, boring as fuck. But like the ability and role-playing capabilities behind them just sounds like a little bit more fun to me. They could be like a really cool NPC to navigate with your team, right?
Yeah. That's sort of the thing with all of these. Like, their stat blocks on all 3 of them are very small. They don't have a lot to them.
Yeah.
We're not getting into legendary anything or even layer actions. They have a lot of flavor, but their stat blocks aren't.
The lore is really good on all 3 of them. The stat blocks are like, like you got to really add to that.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chimera, I think, is definitely the one that could bring a lot of shock and a lot of excitement in an encounter. And I do like that whether you look at the Theros book or you don't, like, there is the ability to swap and switch a little bit to make it fit the campaign that you're making. And it would be really fun this is where you get 3 potential different personalities that are in combat with each other and just create chaos in an encounter, which I find I'm sure it would be very exhausting as a DM, but it would also just be really fun.
Yeah.
See, and I think it would be like, as a player, to see it like fighting with itself, but then getting into combat, and like that's when it clicks. That's when it works its best together, because it has to live together, it has to survive together. So like, it does have to have those instincts of like, now is time to fight, now is time to eat, now is time to hunt, and it would work very well with itself in that aspect. And then like personal aspect behind the scenes, it like is very just frustrated with itself.
Their day-to-day routine,
like,
pristine, but as soon as you throw a wrench into it, it's just like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Because you could also, like, it doesn't speak, but if you do have a druid that can cast speak with animals, I imagine it could understand.
I would allow that. Even
though, because they are animal. I mean, the dragon has its own thing, but like, they are a lion and a goat, so that would qualify as animals.
Yeah.
For cast.
I think that's the reason why they only mention the fact that it understands Draconic, is because Draconic is a language. We don't have a language for goats, so we don't have a language for lions. It's just animal noises, right? So having speak with animals, I feel I would give it for this, for sure.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Anyway,
that's all for this part of our conversation on monstrosities in D&D 5th edition. Please take a second to engage with a like, follow, comment, and review to help push our engagement. And don't forget to subscribe to find future inspirations for your campaigns.
If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, as well as a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're gonna get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Please check the show notes for this episode to see links, time codes, and credits. And don't forget to reach out and share your own inspirations.
So
Oh, that's another point. Like, what half of it would you?
whatever the
want?
fuck you
Yeah.
want. You
The
pick
wings are a
whatever
good one.
features.
Yeah. Like, I don't really need to breathe out any sort of weapon, but like if I had some cool wings.
Wings
And you
and
could just,
claws.
I feel like the frightful presence also, like just as a woman to just be able to exude like don't fuck with me energy would be very handy.
Right? That does,
Yeah.
that seems very useful. Like,
Yeah.
And I feel like that would apply for half dragon and half lion.
Hmm.
it's very fair. I'm going, you
Yeah.
know what? I want the full 4 legs. I'm going like full like Chimera or Manticore on this one. Give me the
Nice.
4 legs.
4 legs. With your Megan face.
With my Megan face, you know, a nice bellowous roar.
Yeah.
It'd be great times. Yeah.
I like
And like your nails would be almond shaped and black.
it.
Yeah, always almond shape, never pointy.
This is the way.
Well manicured.
Yeah.
That's so ugly.